Hey guys, it's Matt. Once a month or so, it's good to do a summary video. What's going on here in this reality is beyond simple. This is, as it's labeled, highly sophisticated graphic. By the way, if you're driving, if there's one graphic that exists in the history of the world that does not need to be seen, you don't need to. This is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. All it is point. If you're driving, it's just point A on one side, point B on the other side. Just a line drawn between point A and point B, and the axis is time. Point A, a time in the past. Point B, a time in the future. And then kind of towards the right, middle right, it says you are here. So the entire reality works to transform a real person of what it once was, point A, and it wants to transform a real person or real boy Pinocchio into point B or whatever its perverted image of what it wants to transform a real person into. I don't like human being for a lot of reasons. So that's it. That's everything that's going on. Everything is, that's not your personal journey. This is remember on the one of the personal journey horrible graphics was that threshold. All the lies and deception to keep you down on that base level, and can you raise yourself up and get past that threshold line? Maybe that's like max Q that's presented in Armageddon and presented by other fictional movies like SpaceX. They like max Q, the point of no return, that personal threshold where you're able to break free. They have no more Jacob Marley chains on your spiritual essence. Well, this is that sort of graphic, but just for the entire society. It's very simple. The human being at some point existed probably in a pretty natural state. It's like a game here. And the screen reality, the minions, the creeps, its systems, its governments, its horrible actors like George Clooney, and every little piece of the puzzle here, it all works to simply turn a human being from where it was at point A to point B. That's it. Now, what happens at point B? This graphic implies that they win. Well, maybe they do. It implies that maybe it's a permanent cutting off of your own spiritual essence, a permanent or somewhat permanent horcruxing of your own self into Ravenclaw's lost item. This is the entire reality as it deals with the masses, or at least a very large population of real people, assuming people here could be different NPCs, etc. There's probably still millions and millions of us. It's very simple. It has a goal. We started at point A, and then it wants to move us to point B. And over the course of a long, long time, maybe hundreds of years or thousands of years, or however long this reality's been here, certainly hasn't been here as long as Charlie D. That's not Charles Manson. It's Charles Darwin would suggest. That's absurd. Our journey at point A. Matt, at point A, we were an amoeba, right? No. Just we were a regular human being at point A. Whether that's hundreds of years ago, thousands, it doesn't matter. See, it's done a really good job moving us down that line towards that perverted place that it wants us ultimately to end up, point B. Their finish line, point B, it's pretty simple. Just real people would then have no sense of who they really are. Put all the stock they have into this reality, into serving these systems. People have no sense of their spiritual self. It's very simple. It really is. Now, along the timeline from point A, which was a much more natural human being than the masses that exist now, what we're trying to do in these small communities is go back towards point A, at least rediscover maybe the human being you could say that once was, or tune ourselves off the frequency. If the sick, perverted, slimy frequency is 94.0, then that's down the left side of the dial, whatever, down there with the radio talk shows and the sports talk, because all that matters is just calling in and bitching about the Philadelphia Eagles all day long, 24/7, 365. Then we're trying to tune ourselves to the other side of the frequency. And no, someone said, well, let's get off the frequency. We can't. We're here, right? We're here. We're on this earth. We're in this reality. We're in these avatars. We're living this life. Living this life, in my analogy, is just we're on that radio dial. We can just keep tuning ourselves down to the other side. Or another way to put it is maybe try to return to what was maybe more pure at point A, but I don't know. It doesn't really matter. We'll never know how pure point A is or what human being as a collective was a long time ago. We know where we can get personally, and that's all we need to do. So the timeline goes from point A to point B, and then the big line, not quite in the middle if you're driving, it's off to the right. It's not at their finish line. There's still a lot left to go, but it says you are here, or at least not maybe you. We've done a good job jumping off this timeline or tuning ourselves off this frequency, but we're 1% of 1% of 1%, maybe. The masses, it says you are here, and most real, whether they be NPCs, whatever, the real people, there's still a lot of real people out there that just open up their TV dinners and sit down and watch Anderson Cooper and believe every bit of it's real. Not every real person here, every spiritual being sees the world the way we do. I mean, we if they're real people, if they're still not completely Geppetto hardened into wood, and there's still a little bit of real boy Pinocchio in them, we believe we can turn them back to away from the dark side, like the last few minutes of Star Wars, The Return of the Jedi, where could you imagine opening up that mask and it was Spike Lee's face that Luke was looking at. Sorry, I can't get that little cretin out of my head. So it says you are here, and that's where the masses are. See, there's not a whole lot of more they need to do. I mean, there's still hope, guys. I mean, they're not it says you are here. That's where the masses are, not where you are. Where the masses are, where they've taken the masses. And, how close to their finish line are they? Well, hopefully there's a ways to go, but it's definitely not in the middle. The you are here line is not in the middle. And all those other lines along the timeline represent wins in terms of moving a real person from point A to point B. So the bigger the line, the bigger the win. So a big line kind of right in the middle, kind of under the M, would be the introduction of the cell phone, smartphone. I mean, it could be argued there has been almost no bigger win in terms of moving a human being from point A to point B than the cell phone, smartphone, iPhone, dry phone. I mean, it's not quite, people can't quite merge with it as much as they try to place their forehead into it. It won't quite merge with the human psyche just yet. And there is no direct interface like plugging in the matrix, plugging into the back of the neck yet, but it's close. I mean, people are trying to merge with it, and in the movies like Her, they're trying to mate with it. Maybe a lot more people are doing that than we know, but that's a huge win, and that's a big line. Say, the line under the M or the line under the E. Now, a gigantic win in moving a human being from point A to point B is exactly what's going on now in not just the renting of the movie Action Jackson starring Carl Weathers, or if I can say this, it's probably copyrighted by now, the Uncanny Deduction, Jabba Dabba Doo. Not just that, but going along with every aspect of what, it's twofold. It's going along with every aspect of what authority says this thing is, and then the Jabba Dabba Doo. Now, there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast or this video in our brothers and sisters in our fight that because of their job have rented the movie. People listening to this, and I've said it before. No, I don't think a liquid going into the body will damn anybody's soul. I'm not just saying that to make people feel good, but here's the thing. See, you have to look at it from a big picture. It wants to move a real person from point A to point B. If you had to do that because of your job, you've assisted it in moving it down the line towards point B. You might have more work to do, or you have more work to do in other areas to bring it back. So, or in the radio station example, if you've, the sick perverted frequency is 94, we're moving our, again, that's like, I know that's 13, but I keep going to that because that's where the sports talk basically is in Philadelphia, with these people bitching about the Philadelphia Eagles all day long. My dad listened to it nonstop in the car for 20 years. So I've heard it for 20 years. And actually, back in the day, I enjoyed it. I called up and bitched about the Philadelphia Eagles myself. So the FM dial radio station example, those that are on the frequency, the sick frequency of the system, they've moved hundreds of millions of people or billions of people, whatever it may be, or how many ever real people that have been moved down to the frequency, the perverted frequency of 94. The point I've made in the past is once somebody gets on the frequency, then the system doesn't have to convince them of anything. It's almost like what I've called the download. They'll go along with anything that authority says and basically do almost anything that authority says. I would think, I used to think there was some limit to it, but now I'm not so sure. A lot of people in my family are completely tuned to the frequency. Like Dr. F making an important announcement from the Oval Office with Joey sitting over in a corner at the kids' table. He says, in order to keep us safe, you need to place a cinder block up your own ass. And, a lot of the people I know would be like trying to figure out how to do that. So we've rejected that. We see what reality wants us to do, and we've trying to tune ourselves to the other end of the dial, whatever's up there, 106, 107, however far it goes. However, just like in this example, trying to move a collective from point A to point B, if you've been jabba dabba dude, is that going to damn your soul forever? No, I don't think so. But you see, you've moved up the dial to 104, and then boom, that will have pulled you back towards the frequency. How much, I don't know. If you're here, point A to point B, we're trying to break the trend here, to remove ourselves from this line and move ourselves back to point A, which in this example is a pure, real spiritual being, a pure five-finger being. I don't like the word human being. It's obviously comes from the system. But if that's even possible, if you've had to do it for your job, then it's not all hope is lost, but you have moved in the direction it wants you to move. See, it's not, guys, it's worked very hard over hundreds of years or probably thousands of years to move real people from point A to point B. It's worked very hard. It works 24/7, 365. As I've said, if we ever wake up one morning and it's not working hard anymore, then that's really bad, because then they've kind of won. They work so hard to try to see this thing that we're going through now, to see it through. That's wonderful news, because they haven't won. They're working this hard and they're this pathetic in their presentation. So it's a long process to move real humans from point A, real people from point A to point B. A long process. The smartphone, the introduction, acceptance of the internet, social media. I mean, I'll look to your comments. What else? What have been the major milestones over even 200-300 years to move a collective of real people down this long sliding scale? I mean, where there's question marks past the "you are here" mark could be the chip in the arm, the Ray Kurzweil brain chip, things like that they want to implement. That people, they will want to implement people in the future merging with the D-Wave snow cone machine, whatever it may be. But it's not one event, guys. It's not a jab in the arm. It's not one event that it just magically moves point A to point B. Point B is a finish line is corrupted reality itself. Maybe some of the minions that don't show their faces on TV have a full understanding of what the screen wants, and the ultimate point B. It's nothing but a reverse Pinocchio. You have a real boy, real girl Pinocchio. It's a reverse Pinocchio, turning it back into wood, or not back, in our case, just turning it into wood, but that's a bad example, just turning it into something that completely serves the system, that completely serves the screen. It's the metaphor or analogy of the Matrix. They've turned a human being into this, and he pretends the copper top Duracell battery, to evolve a human being into this. That's all it is. The entire reality is just moving real people from point A to point B. And we identified this. We've jumped off this line. We're moving ourselves back towards point A or away from the frequency. And again, last thing, if you're working in a hospital system and you had to do what you had to do, well, then you've just assisted it. You didn't doom your soul forever. You've assisted it. You have work to do, and you have to make up for that in other areas to get back to point A, to get yourself that personal threshold diagram we looked at a few months back, where anybody that never leaves the bottom line, just watches the news, does everything that Dr. ABCDF says to do, believes in every bit of everything, believes in all of history as presented. They never get off the bottom line. They'll never have that breakaway threshold. Well, I've got to do a sidebar here because 5% of the people even here are probably highly triggered by what I said a few minutes ago. People here are much bigger thinkers and more flexible in their positions, more open. The truth community in general is much more triggered on this issue. So I said, to a 5% here, it's just horrible what I said, that if you work in a hospital system or a big corporation, you've got to feed your family. I said, if you rented the movie Action Jacksonation, then you're not doomed forever. You have more work to do. You've helped them move you from point A to point B, or you've helped them tune you back towards that 94 frequency. But to a certain percentage of the truth community, that's just blasphemy. No, Matt, you can never do it. These people are doomed. I'm not saying that to make people feel better. I believe that. Okay, I'm going to say it one more time and I'll back up my position. That one squirt in the arm is not going to doom anybody's soul. Okay, I can prove it. If it was that simple and it was all about one event, just going for the squirt and the renting of the movie Action Jacksonation, if that's all it was, look at the timeline here between point A and point B. What were all the hundreds or thousands of steps before that for? What did they need all that for? Why did they need to work overtime 365, 24/7 about getting people to love their smartphones, to be on Facebook 4 or 5 hours a day? Why did they do the introduction of the television, all the subliminals, all the mind screws they've done, all the Edward Bernays mind fucks, everything presented, false history, everything they've done has been a deception for hundreds and hundreds of years. What was all that for? When they just had to do nothing, right? Just do nothing. They just had to cook up this thing called CV, get everybody terrified about their health and well-being, then just introduce the VHS movie Action Jackson in Blockbuster rentals. Everybody will run out to rent the movie, and that's it. They won. Like, what was all the other thousands of steps in the past for? If that's all they needed, and that was the ultimate doom your soul move. See, if that's all they needed, then they would have done nothing, and they would have done this a long time ago. It's cumulative. It's point A to point B over a long period of time. Now, I'll give you, like on this timeline, I've drawn lines a little bit bigger. These are supposed to represent big wins from a not-nilk perspective. Big wins in terms of moving real people from point A to point B. When they get to point B, they don't know who they are. If they ever get to point B, they have no chance of knowing who they are. They have no chance of getting in touch with their spiritual side. No chance of ever believing they're more than this incarnation and existence. No chance of maybe getting out of a recycling trap of spirit, soul returning to body or avatar time after time, if that's what you believe. But they're continuing, and how many millions of people have rented the movie Action Jacksonation? A lot of millions, hundreds of millions of real people. So they've won, right? They've won. So when I turn on the news, they're still working really hard, and they work so hard it comes off as pathetic most of the time. So why are they working so hard if that was ever... See, it's not everything. I agree. I'm not going to send anybody awards if they rented the movie and send them a box of powdered donuts. I'm not going to... It's not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying that that's like 2 steps forward. That's a gigantic step back, or a gigantic step back towards the frequency. Saying you have more work to do in other areas to make up for that then. But it's not the end all, okay, like a lot of the truth community believes. It's not. Why have they worked so hard before? Why are they working so hard now, if that's the end all? All right, enough said. Enough said. It's that Bernie Mac domino game in Ocean's 13, was it? Yeah. Enough said. You don't need no literature, Mr. Bang. You gotta feel it. Enough said. Sorry. So this theme of simply moving real people, and if anybody's struggling with me saying that, there could be a lot of people here down your street that aren't the same as you, that just aren't as real. The concept of the NPC, we don't know. We don't know. I mean, we know the creeps are a different type of entity, per Melvin and Bezos talking about it yesterday. But there could be a lot of different types of people, and it gets back to the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal. Well, everything here presented at the highest level is an inversion. So that you can kind of look at that and probably say, oh, that says right in the opening lines, all men are created equal. It probably means that they're not. And there's a lot of different types of entities here. But so that's what I mean by real people. The whole reality, the goal of the creeps on behalf of the screen, reality itself, very simple. Over a long period of time, they're extremely patient, move them from point A to point B. Maybe it's a gigantic game that you signed up for. A lot of smart people believe you signed up for every bit of being here right now. The creeps play their role. Our goal is to become lucid and realize our situation and to move away from it, which is what we're doing now. Unfortunately, most people are not like us. They're simply going along with it. And in fact, they're asking for point A to point B to be a roller coaster ride. They're trying to get in a tram. Unfortunately, most people around us are trying to get into a tram to move more quickly down the monorail to point B. We're trying to jump off the Titanic on the ship of fools, right? So, but there's a lot of allusions to this in media, art, movies. The Borg comes to mind, but it's never going to be exactly. Well, maybe there are some movies that show you kind of exactly what's happening, but most of them are just allusions or references. The Borg comes to mind. So the Borg come in, they want a hive mind, they want a collective, and they will assimilate. Point A to point B is an assimilation, or some people would say an initiation, whatever term you want to use. Now, on Star Trek, they assimilate, and their Borg and the nanobots or whatever go to work, and the nanobites and the cenobites go to work, and you're Borg in like 10 minutes. It's like quick. Where that's not what happens here. Happens over a long period of time, in my opinion. I think it's a game that's been played a long time. I think it's been going on for as long as this reality system's existed. 500 years, 1,000 years, 2,000 years, whatever it may be. There's no genuine group that, in my opinion, that organized in 1776. Just the one time that real people stood up to kings and everything was kumbaya until they started to take back over, and that theme's been presented so many times. Then they'll look at the Kennedy two asses in a nation, and oh no, that was the moment when it was all good before that. That was the moment there was a coup d'etat. Kevin Costner in that courtroom will say it was a coup d'etat against America. They just repeat the same themes. It's likely always been here. It's a giant long slog to get a real boy Pinocchio and real girl Pinocchio. I want to be inclusive. I'm not including any other pronouns with a Pinocchio reference, to point A to point B. It's a long slog. It ain't just one moment when you go to the doctor's office and they pull something out and shove it into you. It's not just one moment. It's a long slog to get from point A to point B. Again, the Matrix is an allusion to this, to turn a human being into this. Yeah, that's the entire point of the reality in one sentence. To turn a human being into whatever they imagine it to be at point B. That's it. Reality is one sentence. It really is. It's this simple. And what else do we have? We have the zombies. Has the zombie theme been big? over the last 15 years to turn a human being into this. Not, they don't really, it's not going to be a zombie, it's a representation, the zombies. These shows, I don't know, the first year or so, they probably had a lot of viewers, but they're kept going artificially, in my opinion, the way The Simpsons are kept going artificially. The Simpsons probably has 5 viewers every Sunday, or the people that just leave their TV on after the last Fox football game. They get a couple tens of thousands of viewers just by people leaving their TV on. And the Walking Dead, the zombie stuff, Fear the Walking Dead, after the first few seasons, probably had 5 viewers. Okay. Yeah, obviously, the ratings would have been canceled, in my opinion, a long time ago. Maybe 50 viewers. That's not enough to support it. And how many hybrids of The Walking Dead and the zombie theory? I mean, the zombie themes and Will Smith, I Am Legend, and it just over and over again, because the art and the media and the truth they have to show you in those ways. All those themes, it's right back to this chart, turning real people from point A, whatever they were, whatever they started out as, over a long period of time into point B. So I guess to close, we should just say, well, we are here. Okay, we are here. That giant line here is the CV and the renting of the action Jacksonation. And it's a big line. It's a big win for them here. Okay, it's a big win on moving the tram forward. So those question marks after the line that says you are here, what more do they have to do to get to their, quote, their finish line of where they want a real spirited being or five-fingered being to end up? And no doubt, I think, maybe it's been a deception because they've been in our faces with it for so many years, but it seems to be the chip. The chip, the Ray Kurzweil chip, the brain chip, the chip under the arm, starts out with how friendly it is. We just chip your pets, and that's so friendly. We can help your pets if they're lost and things like that. I know my pet's been getting it for 10 years. It can't be that big of a deal. That's why they probably introduced it to the pets, giving something to the pet. And it works for the pet. If the pet's lost, it can be identified. They're not going to do something to harm the pet, then nobody would want to do it for themselves. They make it wonderful for the pet. And they make it attractive, and then people will want it for themselves for different reasons. You don't have to, the convenience of not having to pull out your credit card to buy a Pepsi. That is just a reason to get a chip under the arm. But people already have it. They have it now to get into their work in Silicon Valley. It already exists. So that isn't the end-all, be-all. It's an incremental step. And the brain chip itself, will that be the end-all, be-all? I don't know. I mean, they're not, it's not just, 4 weeks from now, they're going to be at point B might be 100 years into the future. These sons of bitches are beyond patient. Their patience is inhuman. Doesn't mean little green men. It just means it's not put it this way. It's not the same as you and me, and it doesn't operate as any normal entity would. It operates like the way, Tony talks about these sequential, damn, I always confuse it, sequential incarnations that have memories of past lives. That was kind of hinted at in that Bezos and Melvin and Bezos speech yesterday, where why would you start as a king or whatever? Why would you start a huge structure? Whether these cathedrals could really be built or not, well, it's not the point here, but why would you start building something you're not going to see finished in your lifetime? They probably do see it finished in another lifetime. That's a different entity than you and me. So they're beyond patient. It's unlikely by the spring, point B's coming, the singularity or whatever. Maybe that's what the singularity is. The singularity may be the moment, the point of no return, where a human, it's just habit, where a real spiritual being can no longer find itself or ever truly understand itself. Maybe that is the singularity. But the point is not to get too complicated. There's a lot of steps left. You see all those question marks to point B? Some people will think point B is 5 years, 10 years. I think it's a long way out. They're beyond patient. They'll be patient in implementing their sick Henry Kissinger strategies and just It's just the way they do business. It's the way they've always done business. What they want to do between point A and point B takes such a long time. This is another reason why people in the truth community say, "Oh, this cataclysm is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and we're doomed here, and this is going to happen to us, and we might not make it past next summer." No, they didn't. They didn't do all that stuff in the past. Hundreds and hundreds of incremental pinpricks. When some truthers can figure out that it's the end of the world this summer, but they don't know. And if they knew, then they wouldn't have done all that they've done. See what I'm saying? It's like, you know, if you're building, you have certain insight. You're the great 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 grandson of Nostradamus. I don't put any stock into that nonsense. Nonsense. It's mumbo jumbo. You can interpret anything in that bullcrap language presented by Nostradamus. It's Nosferatu, as far as I'm concerned. But if in this dumb example, if somebody's great, 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 and they can see the future, and they're building a garage behind their house, and this summer, that's the end of everything. Are they going to keep building the garage? No, they're going to stop. They're going to stop. But in terms of what the not milk system does, it's systems. It's your neighbor. You look out. Your neighbor's the not milk and all its systems. But it's getting windows delivered for the garage. It's getting more plywood delivered. It's getting 4x8 sheets of exterior plywood that are now probably like $100 each. It's getting all this stuff in. It's getting electrical permits. If it's doing all that, it's not the end of the world this summer. The guy's still building the garage. See, be careful. Be worried when it goes quiet. I keep saying that. It's so common sense that nobody seems to understand that. Get fearful when it goes quiet. If you don't ever be fearful based on who you should know you are, but you know what I'm saying. Be afraid. Be very afraid if it goes quiet. Oh, turn on the news. They're working overtime to convince me with all this pathetic bull horse shit. Then be thrilled because that means they're not close to point B. They have a lot of work to do. There's no cataclysm coming, or they would stop. Do you see how simple this is, guys? You can also even apply that into movies. I remember the first time I thought about it was Disney pushed for, I don't know, they made a big push for was it Will Smith as Aladdin? And it doesn't seem like a big movie now, guys, and I guess it was a flop and it was horrible. But I remember the marketing of it. They pushed hard for a month, say, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months before the movie came out. And I remember thinking to myself, Disney's at the creepy table. Those said if they're pushing this hard, that this movie, to go see this movie, and they're advertising so much for it, and they made it, that means we'll at least be here till then. No, I guess the reason I thought that there was somebody in the truth community, or not some person, but a movement inside the truth community that was pushing for, once again, Hail Bob Comet, end of the world, this is going to happen, this cataclysm is going to happen, this major disaster is going to happen. So there must have been something. And I thought, well, if the truth community knows about it, Disney knows about it, the seat at the creepy table, and why would they be pushing this Aladdin so aggressively? And I know it's a bad example. I just remember thinking this during the marketing of Aladdin. And I thought, well, at least we have till then. And it was the same with the Matrix movie. People push the solstice, this is going to happen, this disaster, this cataclysm. And I thought, the Matrix is 1,000 times bigger to the creeps than Aladdin. I thought, well, at least we have till the Matrix comes out. And I think point B, guys, is 100 years away or more in terms of what they need to do, and they're very patient. So when even by itself, you can take a movie that's coming out and say this summer they're going to do this and that. Like, well, they would know if the cataclysm's coming, if the truth community knows. At least we have till then. But I mean, this is just obviously I'm just this is a ridiculous example, but it's apt. It's actually applicable. But if you back up far enough, you could say, oh, they've worked so hard for hundreds of years. It's likely they didn't do all this, just if we just had till the end of August. All this comet presentations, the asteroid presentations are all over the news, or you have to dig a little bit for them, like science.com, and there's all these articles. You could pull all of these references for the last 2 years about this asteroid was discovered, and it's going to pass within 100,000 miles of the Earth. And this one just passed 100,000 miles from the Earth, and we didn't know about it. Luckily, it wasn't too close. And this one might come between the moon and all this stuff about asteroids. Bullcrap. Bullcrap, bullcrap, every bit of it. Bullcrap. And even if there are things flying around up there called asteroids, there's no threat any of them are going to hit or anything, or they would stop working so hard, if you see what I'm saying. I'll just close with this. I've said it 100 times in the past, and I've been repetitive with this issue in this presentation, but there is no better news. There's no better news. When they go turn your news on, just watch it for the first time. Look how hard they're working. The local news reporters, Channel 6 Action News, and they're running around in their masks again, and this and that, and this game's going to be canceled, and that game's going to be canceled. I don't know if the Rose Bowl game's going to be played. What did Paulie say when he ended up with Rocky there in Russia to train? He's like, they don't even got the Rose Bowl game here. Rock. I mean, this game's going to be canceled. Look how hard they're working. Just with, see, people that thought the cataclysm was coming just from CV alone, like, why did they work so hard with the CV thing if the world's going to be over in a few months? See how that wouldn't make any sense? Well, they wouldn't know. Well, the creeps wouldn't know, but the truthers know? Really? No. Go turn your news on and see how hard they're working. You know that is the best news of all time. It means, at least from your perspective, they're not even close to taking you to point B, or even the masses in general. They wouldn't be working so hard. Be fearful to a degree, not really, but you know what I mean. If they stop trying, then we're really screwed. Right now, it's the greatest news of all time, because not only they're trying so hard, the nature of how they're trying is breaking down into the absurd. Thanks for listening.